Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and in this video, we're going to be doing a champion guide for Ramantu Drake's Blood, going over an infographic that I'll provide down below. I will show you all the abilities, multipliers, how to use him, what I think about him, would I change anything, how I would give Plarium in terms of their design of this champion and his implementation for his kit as the mission champion. After Arbiter, you get Arbiter, then you continue doing more and more missions until you get Ramantu when you are super endgame. So we are going to do a full showcase on him. Let's get into it. Alrighty, and first of all, massive shout out to my good friend Ash Voyager, who did an amazing job finishing these missions super fast, letting me jump on the account here. I haven't quite finished mine yet, but I wanted to get this content out there as soon as possible for those of you that finished the missions before me and are looking at some input on Ramantu. That's what this is going to be designed to do. So as we jump into the index, we're going to go under Lizardman, and the Void Legendary right here on the bottom left is going to be Ramantu Drake's Blood. Now, as always, for my champion guides, you know the drill. I've got an infographic right here that'll be down below in the description and a pinned comment, nice and easy to find. But also, as you know, you're going to want to take note that the masteries need to be done in accordance to how you are using the champion. These are just general ones, and they are going to be the ones that are on the champion that you see in the video. But it's an opportunity for you to have all the information about the basics of a champion in one infographic right there. So now let's dive into the analysis of the stats and the kit here for Ramantu. But first, aesthetics, awesome. Love it. So they've been doing a lot with wings recently in the game. With any new champion they bring to the game, you got like Lydia from Faction Wars, Ramantu for the missions. Then you get the champions like Countess Lix, Cardio being a new Void Legendary, Astralon. They're really exploring some of the new artwork with wings. Not complaining because it ends up looking super cool, and you'll see when he kind of flies into battle, it looks amazing as well. So not a complaint, just kind of an observation that they're really kind of branching out into using a lot of winged champions for aesthetic. But for the stats, in terms of what is jumping out, the base HP is kind of low, same with the defense. So he's going to be a little bit squishy, but he does have a really good base attack, and a decent base speed of 105 is definitely on the good side. Anything over 100 is going to be typically pretty good. Crit rate, crit damage are pretty normal, and then he gets 50 base resistance and accuracy, which is pretty good. Usually champions are going to be somewhere between 20 and 40. Getting 50 is very good for a base on the res and the ac. Then as we dive into the kit analysis, we'll start with the A1, and we've got attack one enemy with a 75% chance that we can book up to 100 of increasing the cooldown of one of the target's skills at random by one turn. Then we get a 25% chance of placing a stun debuff on the target for one turn if a skill has its cooldown increased to the max. So what you can see happening in the photo here, where we're attacking the Valkyrie with Ramantu's A1, and you can see the increased cooldown proc happening. Now, we did not place the stun because we didn't increase the cooldown to max. So if a champion has an ability that is like after they cast it, it goes on a 3-turn cooldown. If they have it on a 2 currently, and you do this ability and it bumps it up to a 3, it hits the max cooldown, you will also have a chance of placing that stun. But we also get a super cool part 2 of this ability. If the cooldown increase is successful, we'll also decrease the cooldown of one random skill by one turn of the ally with the highest turn meter and a skill on cooldown. So you can see this happening on the Siphi. The increased cooldown was successful on our opponent. So on our own team, we're going to proc that effect of decreasing a cooldown of one random skill. And then you see that the Arbiter has a higher turn meter, but the Arbiter does not currently have a skill on cooldown. So then it defaults to switching over to the Siphi, and it will decrease the cooldown of her ability, even though she did not have the highest turn meter. So that image over there is a really good kind of like showcase of what this A1 can do kind of in action on the battlefield. Then for the A2, we've got attack one enemy 4 times. And now this is going to be very wordy, but I promise it's a lot simpler than it seems like in the text. The first hit, and by the way, we can, instead of me saying it 4 times, we can book all of these to 100% chance. But the first hit is going to be placing the big version of decreased defense for 2 turns. The second hit is going to be placing the big version of weaken for 2 turns. The third hit is going to be placing the big version of decreased speed for 2 turns. And then the fourth hit is going to be placing a block buffs for 2 turns. And then also, we're going to be booking up to 100% chance of placing a true fear on all enemies for 1 turn if the target has 4 or more debuffs after the attack. Now, again, this image is a good opportunity to showcase this because we're attacking the Valkyrie again with this 4-hitter A2 here, and we placed the defense down, we placed the weaken, and then we got resisted on placing the decreased speed, and then we were successful on the block buffs. So we were able to get 3 of them onto the Valkyrie, but the Valkyrie already had a debuff from the A3, so even though we missed one of them, we still hit the threshold of getting 4 debuffs on the Valkyrie, which now means that we're going to spread a true fear to all enemies. And you see those purple ghost silhouettes kind of flying up in the air. That means the true fear is being placed on all of the enemies here because of getting the 4 debuffs on the Valkyrie. Then for the A3, we have got attack all enemies with an 80% that we can book up to 100 of removing all buffs from all enemies before attacking. So we're getting a big AoE buff strip with a hit as well. And then we've also got book up to 100% chance of placing a block active skills debuff for 2 turns on enemies without passive skills. So you can see there the 2 enemies on the right, the Arbiter and the Cythalia, are getting the padlock debuff icon, which means blocking active skills. And then we also get a booked up 100% chance of placing a block passive skills debuff. And you can see there on the Valkyrie and the Krisk, they have passives, so we're blocking them with the little debuff of the 2 handcuffs icon on the debuff icon there. That's a new one to the game, so the little handcuff icon is going to be the representation of the debuff for blocking passive skills. Ramantu also gets a passive where whenever an enemy places a stun, sleep, freeze, fear, or true fear, provoke on the champion, basically all of the CC debuffs will instantly fill the champion's turn meter by 30% and place the big increased speed buff and a shield on him for 2 turns. And then the shield buff is equal to 30% of his max HP. So if you're looking to get value out of the passive there, when CCs are going to be placed on him, you would want a decent amount of HP on him. And then we also get an aura of ally accuracy in all battles by 80. So all in all, a very solid kit for sure. Lots of new things going on, but I would get you my full thoughts on him as a champion a little bit later down the road when I show you the grades and everything. But right now, let's go over the Ramantu that we have built, and we'll talk about the booking, the gearing, the masteries, and all that stuff. Okay, so here is the Ramantu built, and you can see the 6 pieces of the Perception set. Perception is an amazing set for him because you need really good speed and accuracy. As you can see up in the top right of the infographic, speed and accuracy are in green because those are the priorities on him. He's going to do really well as a debuffer that is making sure to get a lot of value out of those debuffs and the AoE buff strip and everything that he does. You want speed and accuracy, so really good to get accuracy banners on him. Now for the amulet, you don't like he'll do decent damage. His multipliers aren't that bad, but I think he's much better suited to be built as a utility support to take advantage of the amazing things that his kit brings. He's not really like a Trunda, some crazy nuker. His multipliers are decent, but I prefer to build him a little bit towards the tougher side and use him for the insane utility that his kit is going to have. So with the ring, we're looking for lots of defense and HP. Remember, we do get some synergy with the passive by getting more of a shield when CCs are landed on him if you do get in with a decent amount of HP. So keep that in mind when you're choosing on your chest piece, your gloves and all of that, and your amulet, your ring, to maybe go after some HP and kind of prioritize that a little bit. Boots, we're almost always going to want a good blend of speed and accuracy with speed as the main stat. And then again on the top pieces, if you're building him as the utility support type champion, you're going to want to prioritize speed and accuracy while obviously getting some of those toughness stats to go along with it. Then for the booking process, he takes 11 books total, and honestly, they're all pretty impactful. The A1, you're getting 25% buff chance, and it's a big 25% because it takes the effect from 75 to 100. It makes it super consistent, and he's not only going to be increasing cooldowns for your opponents, but also going to be decreasing to help your team kind of rotate through a little bit better. So I think the books are super good on the A1 and worth it because he's a pretty good champion. Also on the A2, you're getting lots of buff chance and damage, and again, it's so important to get that buff chance because you're going from 75 to 100, and you want to place all 4 of these so you can also place those true fears, which are super impactful. Same story on the A3. You're getting to a cooldown and making the buff chance super consistent. You're taking it up to 100% the passive does not have any books. So in general, I think he is worth booking, especially if you're not like some crazy whale who's got 20 void legendaries. He is going to be a really good champion for your account when you get him finished. He's got a lot of fun stuff going on in the kit, so I think he's worth booking if you've got the books. Then for the masteries, worth noting that this is more of kind of a hybrid general setup, but it definitely viable to go down the defense tree instead of the offense tree, and just go for defense and support on him and not really build him to do any damage. That's totally fine. What you see here is more of like a hybrid where he does a little bit of damage. You get a little bit of attack on him, some crit rate, but you also want to make sure that he's landing all of his debuffs as well. So keep that in mind when you are putting together his masteries. Now let's go ahead and show you some footage here in action of Ramantu. That's what I was talking about. Super cool when he flies in, takes his stance, and kind of starts the battle. This is just a campaign run. It's not going to be, he's not going to be some god tier XP farmer. This is a chance for you to see the flow of his abilities and kind of what he looks like, the animations and all of that. He can definitely be a campaign farmer, but by the time you get Ramantu, and you are endgame, obviously, because you've done all of the missions, not only for Arbiter, but for Ramantu, you're not going to be using Ramantu as your XP farmer, probably. So I just threw this in there for you to kind of see what he looks like, and then we'll dive in to showcasing his abilities here in some of the arena fights and stuff. There's the block active skills going down. And boom, the block active skills again on the A2. You can see here I've got him built to kind of be more of a support, not hitting super hard, which is totally fine. And now we're going to dive into an arena fight where, like during my testing on finding things to review, I found one where he ended up being pretty impactful in a fight that was getting pretty tough. See, like right there, he was provoked. So honestly, not that bad of an idea if you're using him as a utility in kind of a defensive go second type team to put him in maybe an immunity set. That's how I've got my War built, because I want to use him in defensive teams. I've got him in an immunity set. I go ahead and prevent from getting CC'd, and then I go ahead and lock them out after that. So definitely a viable option on Ramantu as well. Because you can see he's constantly kind of CC, but he's got he's got a chance to proc that speed upgrade as well when he gets kind of CC'd there. Remember the passive. So now right here, this is gonna be super impactful. We remove all of those buffs, and we lock out passives and active skills here. We got the passives on the Valkyrie and the Chris, and the actives on the Arbiter and the Stalia. Completely changed the fight. We were kind of losing. It was getting behind us. And then boom, he strips everything off and locks them out, allows us to kind of get back in the game. After that, we get a revive. We've got the Drake's Fury coming in, where we're gonna hit the Valkyrie 4 times. We're gonna place those different debuffs, and then we're gonna get the true fear proc like you saw in the image right there on everything. Ramantu really swinging the tide and helping us get back in this. Then once Sify starts kind of reviving and popping off, we're gonna get back into the game. We've got Ramantu coming in again. There is the increased cooldown, and then decreasing a cooldown on our Sify, which is obviously going to be very impactful. And then we can go ahead, revive. Now Sify had the cooldown reduced, so she gets off her super impactful ability. And you can see how this is a fight where Ramantu completely turned the tide and allowed us to kind of get back into it and start snowballing against them. So now that we kind of got our rotation set up, we should be pretty good to start popping off, and we get a decreased duration there, and we can see if we can get Ramantu to be super impactful again. Yep, right there, he's gonna remove all those buffs and lock them out again. So very clutch twice on that AoE buff strip and lockout. And once they're locked out and we've got all of our stuff up, obviously gonna be pretty easy from there. Boom and boom. And now I want to show you another one so you can see really quickly what his AI is going to do as a priority. Right here, boom, his first turn. Even if they have no buffs, he will do the AoE attack that does a buff strip and locks them out. So I want to put that in there so you can see, well, will he still do that? Because sometimes their AI will be different and will be affected by buffs and debuffs. So even if they have no buffs up, he will still do the AoE buff strip and the attack that locks them out. There you see he placed all 4 that time. The defense break, the weaken, the speed down, and the block buffs replaced all 4 of them. Come on, Ramantu. I'm trying to do a showcase, and you're sleeping on the job here. That's all right, though. He kind of already did his part for there we go. Now you're up. He had already done his part for swinging the fight, though, for sure. And there you have it. So now let's go over the grades and talk about my final thoughts on Ramantu and how he performs as a champion and how Plarium did in terms of designing him. Let's go ahead and pop up the grades up top there, and we'll go over the tier list ranks here. So overall, grading him in a vacuum, he actually grades out super well. Remember, he's void, so he is never going to hit weak. He's never going to be hit strong. The clan boss, he does a lot of good debuffs, but he could potentially throw off your cooldowns and not really work super strong. Nowadays, the meta is kind of the unkillable type stuff, the ally protection, infinity comp type stuff. He's not really going to be great in those scenarios, but in your normal old school compositions, he'll be a pretty solid champion for the defense down, the weekend, and everything that he brings. In the arena, he's definitely really good. My tier list goes up all the way to 12. It's a 1 to 10 scale, but I do go to 11 and 12 for like super meta champions. So your things like Warlord is going to be a 12 in the arena and stuff like that. I think he's going to be very, very good in the arena. He's got the AoE buff strip, the lockout, the buffing himself for CC. He helps the rotation of your team. You saw him lowering cooldowns of my Siphi, increasing cooldowns of our enemies. So lots and lots of utility for him here in the arena. XP farm, he can do it, but not amazing. Faction Wars, he's going to be great for the Lizardmen. Obviously, for sure, he's an amazing champion to have for Faction Wars. The one note there is, honestly, I could probably bump that down to 11 because the Lizardmen, the final boss, is the red one that is going to be one-shotting you. He doesn't have a lot of HP. He doesn't bring revive and stuff, so I'd probably put like an 11 there on the Faction Wars and change that up. Doom Tower, he does bring a lot of general utility, so he's got a solid score there. Dragon, obviously, in the Dragon is kind of a DPS race. He brings the defense down and the weekend, and he's obviously amazing versus the waves. The Spider, pretty self-explanatory. He doesn't have a lot of like the AoE utility. He's not like a Bellower doing AoE on all of his abilities, but he does bring a lot of crucial debuffs. For the Fire Knight, he does not have a multi-hit A1, but he does do a lot of other stuff besides that. And then the Minotaur, the Void, the Spirit, the Magic, the Force, and the Arcane. The Arcane, he doesn't really bring a lot of AoE team buffs, so that's why he's a little bit lower on that, but obviously amazing in the Spirit and the Magic because of the AoE buff strip, which is really, really important in those two areas. So also versus the Force Keep, he gets the max score because he's going to be placing the defense down and the weekend, which is super important there. The Force Keep is the one with the highest base defense. So now in conclusion, how do I feel they did in terms of designing him, and is there anything I would change? Honestly, I think they did pretty good in designing him. Like, the challenge is for anybody that finishes all those missions. They finish the Arbiter missions, then they finish the Drake's Blood missions. By then, that player is going to be very, very endgame. So this champion has to be incredible, but you also don't want to release a champion that's broken and makes the game ridiculous for anybody that finishes the missions versus somebody that doesn't. So like, that's a very tough line to walk. I think they did a pretty good job. Because his base stats are so low, I may have given him a little bit more love on the toughness part of the passive. I think it's cool they went that route in terms of synergizing the passive to make him a little bit tougher because of his kit being so good. They made his base HP and defense a little bit low. I would maybe put in his passive, like, the first time this champion suffers fatal damage, is going to place an unkillable buff for 1 turn and negate that fatal damage or something like that, just to help him maybe only have it proc once, like the first time this champion takes fatal damage. There's not a whole lot. There already are kind of mechanics like that in the game. You see that with like Skull Crown, Rhodos, but not a ton of champions that have that. I think that would have been a nice touch to add to his passive, just to make him that much more utility in the arena and stuff, which is obviously going to be super important. Players that finish the missions and get him, they're going to want help to use this guy in the arena and in tag team arena especially. So I would have maybe given him a little bit more love, something like that on the passive. But besides that, he brings some new fun stuff to the game, like that block passive skills, and the kit is honestly pretty insane and pretty good on paper. So I think they got it mostly right. The aesthetics are cool. Maybe just a touch on the passive to help him out just a little bit. But besides that, I think he's mostly pretty solid. So that is going to do it for me on this one. Would love to hear what you think down below. Like I said, I'm always willing to adjust my my gradings on my tier list based on feedback that I get from community and other players and stuff like that. So would love to hear your input down below. And as always, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.